Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome back to the Think Factory podcast, and I'm your host, Chris Santamassimo from OGC Solutions, and we power the Think Factory podcast. And OGC Solutions powers the Think Factory podcast, and we're proud of that, of course. And I'm here with a friend, Len Giglio, who's the CEO of Tempo Flexible Packaging up in Ontario, Canada. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Oh, Len, it's great. To set the stage a little bit, you and I were talking, of course, about the packaging market, but I wanted to introduce not only you and Tempo to the listeners of the podcast, but talking a little bit about what you've been able to achieve as a team, and then let's talk a little bit about the sustainability issues that I think have, really enveloped the packaging business worldwide, certainly in North America as well. But let's talk about introduction to Tempo and what you folks do.
So for those who don't know who we are, Tempo Flex, medium-sized flexible packaging operation, just around 200 employees in Southern Ontario, Canada. And we've been in business for now 54 years, family-owned company.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We wear that really proud. My father actually was a co-founder with his partner, John Patterson. And together they've kind of that story out of a garage is this long-standing packaging company. And at its core, really, we were a packaging company that was developed around great people with great ideas, with an entrepreneurial spirit and a passion for learning and continuous improvement. And we've kind of taken that over, 5+ decades. Really, enjoyed this ride as a flexible packaging manufacturer. Back in 1970, we were known as Tempo Plastics. But when my sister and I took over back in 2021, we decided to rebrand as Tempo Flexible Packaging, and because plastics is still a major part of what we do and the majority of what we do, but now we're, a little bit more open-minded to other materials like papers and bio-based materials and all sorts of things that are made from new resources that weren't really an option without the technology evolving. So that's a bit about Tempo, what we make. So flexible packaging, for those who don't know, I'm sure it's a lot of packaging people I know follow this podcast, but flexible pouches, roll stock, bags, and stuff like that, predominantly printed for the food industry. We also do some medical packaging, pet food, lawn and garden, and some other markets. And everything we do is pretty much custom. We do a lot of custom work, making sure that we're fulfilling the needs specifically to our client.
I'm curious, what was your dad and his partner? What were they making back in 1970 when they started?
So back in 1970, it was a lot simpler. So we actually didn't print for the first 7 years. We were focused strictly on polyethylene, low-density polyethylene bags, and a lot of stock items. So they were just doing regular poly. They were converting to start. So they would buy polyethylene and then convert into various bag sizes, and even doing things like selling by the case. And at least in Ontario, our company was one of the first to kind of standardize some stock bag sizes that they could sell to various different companies and be able to gain efficiencies on, large manufacturing runs, but parting it out into case by case, which now we know there's a lot of companies that are happy to do that. They'll sell you a case, buy 100,000 from us, but sell it 500 at a time. That was a little novel at the time. But what they really learned is by control their supply chain of just converting. But then by the mid-70s, they bought their first extruder. So they started polyethylene. By the late 70s, they were printing and bought their first printing press. And then they really became this kind of full service flexible packaging manufacturer.
Oh, that's a great story. And for you and your sister to be able to take the reins and run the business and continue on and grow, that's an exciting story as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's family businesses are great, and I've heard all sorts of stories. I love meeting other entrepreneurs at their family businesses. I've met with companies that are, quadruple our size and have much bigger families and small mom and pop shops, and we all have similar themes when you're working with people that you have relationships, inside and outside the business, which is unique. But our business really, we really try to treat everybody like a family member. We have a lot of core values that we think could be a strength of our business. And, meeting other business owners that have much larger, multi-billion dollar corporations that are still family owned. I've seen models where, you can maintain family values, but still scale up like a large corporation. So, anytime I can, I'm always open to hearing how other business owners do it and how they have success and trying to, take bits and pieces from everybody on what success means to them. And we do our best, even though we are a family business, people that are not, my last name have the same, respect and responsibility. So we have all sorts of people that have been here for 10, 15, 20, 30 plus years. Our most tenure employee is 42 years right now. Wow. So I mean, how even though we're not related, how do you not consider this person family, right? So it's kind of cool. I really enjoy it, and people that have come from other businesses sometimes forget how cool it could be to have a business that can strike the right balance of corporation that can move the needle, but at the same time family values. So it's a fun balancing act.
Well, I think the long tenure of your employees really is the clue when something right when it comes to core values. For people that hang around that long and be satisfied and happy, that says a lot about the business. Yeah.
And I mean, you're right. That's the best data point you can have, right? I mean, I can show you all sorts of stuff, but we really, our fathers told us at a young age, like, people are the core of this business. The success starts with people, the right people doing the right job. So we've always made sure that we're including people in all decision making that matters, and then giving them the feedback to be successful, giving them opportunities to grow within the company. And it's not a perfect model by any means, but at the same time, I think people feel like they have a purpose. And I think, a lot of people, we can make money all sorts of ways, but when you get up every day feeling like you're part of something, it makes it a little bit easier to show up every day and give it your all. So inside works, outside of work, there's a lot of personal relationships here. We are in being north of Toronto, we are in a smaller community, which also helps with that philosophical perspective of our team. But we definitely want to have long-term people, because skill sets in our industry are very important. I mean, it's not a regular trade. The print business, which you're very familiar with, I know right now all of us are struggling with that kind of next generation of, operators. When you have somebody and you think they're a great person, we want to make sure that we can train them and give them the skills to be successful and hold them. We don't want that rotating door. That's not good for anybody. So we want stability. They want stability. And we really make sure that our people know that when we hire them, our intention, we say, is to go on the builder's wall, which is anybody who's been here for 30 years. It's kind of like our Hall of Fame. So we say, this is the wall we expect you to go on when we meet them in day one. They do their orientation in the builder's room with all these people that have been here for 30 plus years. And we just set the tone right away. Like, we're committed to you if you're committed to us. And this is really the symbiotic relationship we want to have with our teammates.
Yeah, you're right about labor. Labor is on the tip of everyone's tongue in the printing and packaging markets. I guess part of the problem there is that some of the programs that used to be around for apprenticeships on the blue collar side and college programs on the for the white collar side of things, those are shrunk or they're not available anymore. So unfortunately, it really rests on your shoulders as a business owner to train your people, get them in the door, keep them excited, and train them along the way.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, some people, we have a lot of good people in this building that have put their kids through school and university and college. And for some reason, sometimes the kids don't think that this is maybe the path that they want to take. And I think maybe that could be a fault of maybe the previous generation forcing everybody to go down one path when not everybody's really made to go down. So we have to be a little bit more creative to show people that maybe don't want to be going down the post-secondary education route, how they can make a great living and do something that's valuable and really, upgrade their skill set. So what we do is we try to partner with local schools. So whether it be high schools, so young people coming right out of high school that don't really know what they want to do and maybe want to learn something. And then we do have some other affiliations with local colleges, mostly in graphic design and pre-press, some in packaging related roles, just to show people like we're here, we're an option. The print industry is alive and well despite obviously being transformed, but there's still a lot of great young people that are excited about print and what print can do and the tangible excitingness that comes of bringing something to life through print, which when we find people that are excited about print, they do well here because we're kind of all print nerds in a way. We love talking about dots. We like talking about color. We like talking about registration, and everybody here at Tempo is the same way. Like after 3 months in, they always say that when they go grocery shopping with their spouse always complains that they're dissecting packaging and looking at how people do printing or how they make a certain package because they're into it and they really like what they're doing. So it's pretty cool. It's genuine.
That's cool. I was about to say that's something you printed on the store shelf, and you jumped right in there and did it. It's funny. I was at the Inkjet Summit that was put on by the Printing United Alliance last week, and to your point about being hyper focused on what you do all day, I was sitting at dinner with somebody who was looking at the wall and saw that there was some wall sign that was slightly askew, and it was driving the guy nuts. He couldn't even pay attention. He had to go and fix the sign. Same kind of thing for sure.
You got it.
So, hey, we are what we do all day, I suppose, right?
Well, you know what? It's great to see, everybody's got similar challenges. I mean, Tempo is not perfect by any means. We have our share of,
Well, or you're shipping products at least, or you've got some customers here. Talk a little bit about the presence here.
Yeah, we do quite a bit in the U.S. I mean, in general, we're 1/10 of the U.S., right? So the U.S. is just this natural market that's relatively trade friendly, so to speak. And even, with an 8-hour shipping drive, transport with Ontario, we have a lot of pretty big states to support and service that are larger than Canada by population, right? So, I mean, we think the U.S. is a wonderful market for us to service. Culturally, there's a lot of similarities with Canada. So, I mean, growing up in Canada, you're watching American television. We understand it. I don't know if I understand American politics, but we definitely have, we're exposed to American politics. There's different parts of Canada that are very similar to different parts of the U.S. So, I mean, we find that culturally we're able to service. The dollar, being the Canadian dollar being weaker than the American dollar, Americans have a little bit better buying power right now, buying from a Canadian supplier, which is a economical advantage, which everybody's looking for right now, like anything. And what's the most latest kind of people are worried. I know there's a pending election in the fall, but I mean, depending on who's in power, the global supply chain might get disrupted, or there might be some, challenges outsourcing outside of North America. So I have a lot of U.S. customers or potential U.S. customers even that are looking at Canada as supply chain in North America where, offshore might have been a more viable solution. But there's a lot of unknown, right? Which means there's a lot of opportunity to fill gaps. And as a mid-sized Canadian company, we're not huge by any means. We're able to be nimble and pivot. And a smaller order in the U.S. would be a good medium-sized order in Canada. So we really service that marketplace, right? And the U.S. market is great for entrepreneurs. I mean, Americans are wonderful entrepreneurs. They're more able to take risk or willing to take risk. And some of those growing companies are companies that we service very, very well. So, I mean, that's just a net for us to help them out.
Well, your business is a lot like ours. It's based on relationships and trust. Yep. And if you can satisfy your customers and keep them happy with good supply and quality products, then you're ahead of the game, ahead of most competitors as well, I think.
Exactly. And we have a small operation, a partnership in the U.S. too. So U.S. footprint a little bit more and understand the different shipping routes that make sense to us. So, yeah, I think it's just a natural fit for us. And the Canadian marketplace, I mean, again, Tempo's been around for over 50 years. I'm not saying we've worked with or called on everybody in Canada, but it's because it's a smaller market, we have a pretty good opportunity for growth for us.
Fantastic. Well, and speaking of, game as a Canadian company, you and I were talking about sustainability, which is another topic on the tip of everyone's tongue in the packaging market. And you might say that, because of, similarities, or more similarities between Canada and Europe as opposed to the U.S. and Europe in terms of the regulations and such, you might be ahead of some of your competitors when it comes to, meeting sustainability goals for your customers or adhering to sustainability regulations that are ever growing. So maybe you could talk a little bit about where you are as a company and how that Canadian presence really is, put you a step ahead of a lot of companies.
So, growing up in this business, and I've grown up in, as a kid, when you're a kid and you have to line up in the gymnasium with your projects and you do a science project, like I'd be the kid doing paper versus plastic surveys in the 1990, talking about the benefits of both packaging formats. So I'm really, it's close to my heart, sustainability. It's something that I've always wanted to see if we can improve that. Because I'm very cognizant of, let's say, the external media impression of plastics in general and the challenges that plastic waste poses, right? So when you're traveling and, in my early years being more in sales and on the road, when you're in Europe, through grocery stores, seeing how the stuff that we make is being used, and we learn a lot about, how the Europeans have adopted packaging. Same thing when I'm traveling in the U.S. I'm seeing it's funny to go to different marketplaces and see different things on the shelves. Canada kind of acts as almost like an intermediary between Europe and the U.S., where we typically, and I'm speaking obviously very generalities, but
yeah, of course,
we adopt some things maybe a little bit sooner than the U.S., and then we can start sending to the U.S. For example. And there's a lot of early adopters in the U.S., and I find a lot of our customers are those early adopters customers in the U.S. because they're looking for something. Again, no fault of American flexible packaging manufacturers, but a lot of them are such a large scale that change in development takes a lot more time, right? Where a smaller company pivots a little quicker, so we're happy to do a little more innovative things, try new things, and that's always been Tempo's space, right? We're trying not to be cookie cutter. We're trying not to be too much into the commodities. We're trying to be a little bit more value add and a little bit more leading edge. So sustainability personally is something that I really enjoyed. And, the more I worked in this industry and started working with other stakeholders, and I'm talking about not just brand owners, CPGs, retailers, and MRFs, for example, recycling facilities. And, because I could move the needle, I wanted to push our company maybe a little more aggressively into more sustainable design packaging than maybe an accountant would have suggested would be a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. But do you find that you're responding to customer requests for more sustainability, or are you ahead of the game in bringing those ideas to your customers, or is it a combination of both?
So it's definitely heated up over the past couple of years. So, in 2015, we won an award for a recyclable pouch or a mono-material pouch, whatever language you want to use. And it was like, to our knowledge, it was the first in Canada. So it was pretty cool. And we brought it to market. I don't think people knew what it was. It actually won silver in this packaging competition. And, today, fast forward, we've won over the past 3 years. I think we won 3 sustainability awards for a similar technology, even like best of show or gold. But it won silver 10 years ago. And, I joke with people, like they just didn't know what it was back then, right? Mm-hmm. But, really, I think ramping up before COVID and the pandemic, people were starting to talk about sustainability. That kind of all got put on hold with the pandemic because we were all just trying to fill the supply chain with anything. And, there was a lot bigger fish to fry than maybe is your package going to go in a blue box, return to store, or landfill. Not to say that's unimportant, but let's be honest, COVID was a complete unknown, right? And through the supply chain was the most important thing. So, but in the past couple of years, coming out of the pandemic, that spotlight has been put on plastics. It's been now, there's a lot of different organizations saying, look, by projecting this far out, like if we don't start doing something, we might make some, really horrible, unchangeable things to our planet, right? So everybody's asking right now, like, pretty much any customer we present this to, they're open-minded or they're reaching out to us, which is nice to hear. The key challenges are the economy of scale isn't there right now. So we have this, inflation right now, and everybody's looking for cost savings, and we have a new technology that is increasing costs. And it's a few reasons. There's cost increase on our end. The economy of scale is not there. But even if I could do it for a cost neutral price, let's say, which we do have applications where we can, typically somewhere in our customers' supply chain, there's an increase in cost. Maybe it's because of shelf life. Maybe because it's scrap and waste. Maybe it's because of the way it runs in their packaging equipment. Doesn't automate as well. So there's these costs. And right now, everybody's trying to figure out how to balance cost savings where the whole market's screaming for us. We need cost savings. Definitely, counterintuitive approach, needs. But nonetheless, the problem's not going to go away. People need things that are more affordable, and we want things that are better for the planet. So we're just constantly trying to develop better things that are going to mitigate costs and having to share costs so that consumers at the end of the day can have an identical solution without the cost implications. And that's what we're all trying to do right now, not just flexible packaging manufacturers, but the people actually making products and shipping and packaging. They're all looking at their equipment, trying to see where they can save to create a circular economy for plastics.
Well, those executives set your customer goals, for sustainability and recyclability. And to your point, they're at loggerheads with their other goal, which is ultimately to make as much money as they can through their operations. So what that right balance is going to probably shift over time in some cases.
You're right. And I mean, some really large organizations, we deal with a lot of procurement people. And the KPI for procurement people is typically cost savings. So, depending on who you're working with and who you're able to present a solution to, sometimes it's a non-starter. Like, I am compensated based on how much I saved the company this year, not this way. But then there are, like you said, some executives that have the foresight to kind of change the internal workings of how their company works and then kind of empower purchasing people to make decisions that are a little different to align with sustainability targets or corporate social goals so that we will be able to move the needle a little bit. So this conversation is nuanced, and every company is slightly different. I can tell you that there's a lot more data when it comes to providing legitimate sustainable solutions. People want to see greenhouse gas now. They want to talk about that. They want to talk about plastic in pounds and the waste. And, we're always trying to find what is the right thing that strikes with. Some people want to talk about how many trees I saved, or how many cars I took off the road, or how many plastic water bottles we saved. So we're always working with people to find, okay, what is the metric you're looking for, and how do we show you the data is right? And sometimes the data doesn't show benefits, and we just have to be honest about it, right? But we're trying to be the way Tempo does things, we try to be as transparent with people, and we show them the data points. We say, look, based on what you're showing us, here's the pros, here's the cons, what are your company's objectives, and we'll try our best to make sure it aligns.
What are a couple of the most exciting, newer technologies and newer materials that people are exploring? Or maybe that Tempo is exploring, I should say.
It is rapidly evolving. Like every 3 to 6 months, it seems like there's something new. I think, what's really exciting is, at least in Canada, we're getting some alignment on the type of materials that people want to start using, which helps us do more development in a very, very focused way. Because, material agnostic to a degree, but I don't want to be spending time working on all sorts of different types of substrates if at the end of the day the market doesn't want it. So, aligning on the types of materials are great. Right now, polyethylene and polypropylene are the two major material types that flexible packaging is kind of, I don't want to say is the winner. That's not right. But
most commonly used, I would say.
Yeah, we're trying to build as these are the materials we want to use to build a circular economy. But we've had a lot of opportunities most recently with barrier applications, and we're able to create these better barrier films without compromising on potential recyclability in the future. So before when we were talking about, as you could imagine, when things are not foods, like when the food safety requirements aren't as high, we have a lot of options. When a package is a dust cover, so to speak, there's so many options, but it gets really narrow when you start talking about bacon bits or, something that's food safe or retort or shelf stable. But, and not just Tempo, but a lot of the flexible packaging manufacturers are coming up with all these barriers. So they're actually creating a legitimate commercial solution to have on shelf for medical and fresh or frozen foods. This was not an option a few years ago. It was pretty much like stuck at, car parts and stuff like that a few years back. So I think it's really exciting that we're able to talk about barrier. We're able to talk about comparable shelf life because we don't want to create other problems like food waste, because I'm not going to go on a separate topic, Chris, but food waste and greenhouse gases is a whole separate, kettle of fish. But right now, working with many different customers, seeing what's working, and we're slowly standardizing some of our offerings to then create these economies of scale to pass on to our customers. So it's exciting because we have enough people now, like we're making millions of packages every day, and a big percentage of that now is in this sustainable recycle ready now. So this is not just R&D. This is actual commercialized solutions, and the more people buy into it, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Well, Len, what's your prediction for what you would expect to see for the rest of 2024 and into 2025 in terms of, developments and new technologies, and maybe where does Tempo fit into all that?
So, there's a lot of brand owners that have made a 2025 commitment, aligning with kind of like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation had this 2025, all packaging should be recyclable or compostable or reusable. A lot of people have pivoted on that target only because the more we've learned about it and, the more we understand of the supply chain, it's not necessarily doable. And a lot of these commitments, in fairness, were made during, the pandemic, right? Small increases affect people, right? And I think you need to have some compassion for those that, a dollar matters. You can't just give a 5 or 10% increase, just say we want to. So these are the people that we're fighting for. We're trying to make sure that everybody's included, and our packaging is very inclusive when it comes to, enabling everybody to be able to purchase it and buy it.
That's exciting. Well, you obviously Tempo was right at the center of all these things, and you've got all of the sort of forward-thinking and forward-looking topics in mind as you develop your products and you serve your customers. So it's nice to be at the forefront of these things.
It is. It's nice. It's a bit scary. So we're part of the Canada Plastics Pact, and we're the only flexible manufacturer there. I wish there were more of my competitors there. It would make my life easier. Because we understand, again, I understand the limitations of our building. Yes, we can do millions of packages a day, but this market is in the billions of packages a day, right? So, we can't help everybody, and we need kind of some consensus as to where we're going, right? So there's lots of opportunities out there. I know a lot of my competitors are doing some wonderful things and have similar solutions to us, maybe not identical, but the more people get on board, I think everybody wins. And I think Tempo's really trying to not hold this as just ours. This is everybody. So we're right or wrong. We're being pretty open-minded, and we share a lot of our stuff with people, and we don't try to, put everything under NDAs or, really worry about IP, because we just think it's the right thing to do. And there's so much work out there. We're going to be very busy, and we are very busy. So
fantastic. Well, let's look forward to some additional growth in 2024 and beyond for Tempo for sure.
We are.
Excellent. Well, Len, thanks so much for sharing some thoughts and introducing everybody to Tempo Flexible Packaging today. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having me on the podcast. This was awesome. It was fun.
Yeah. So to sum it up, this has been Len Giglio, who's the CEO and the second generation, along with your sister, at Tempo Flexible Packaging in Ontario. Tell everybody where they can get a hold of you and find the company.
So you can find us on LinkedIn, Tempo Flexible Packaging. And obviously our website is tempoflexiblepackaging.com, and it is a mouthful. But that's what we've gone with today. And we're looking at some alternative, maybe short forms, to make it a few less keystrokes for everybody.
Excellent. But at least we can find you. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
So Len, thanks again for a great session. And, signing off for today, this is Chris Santomassimo from OGC Solutions, the host of the Think Factory podcast. And we'll see you again next time.